Hi, I'm Jennifer, and I wanted to talk about goal setting. I like the system that my dad made up back when he was in like his 30s, and he taught it to me when I was young. So I've really been using this system, this approach, for almost 40 years. And so it's definitely had been tried and proven for me, and I wouldn't do anything else. So I thought I would share it. Let me say this about goal setting. A lot of people are like, I don't want, I make and break resolutions, the first week of January every year is depressing. I don't want to do that. Goals are something that can be started at any time, and I think they have a good purpose, and that's the thing. They make your life purposeful and intentional. Those are things that I value very much. I don't want to have a life that didn't count for anything. I want to get to the end of my life and know that I have done the things that were important to me. So, in order to be intentional and purposeful, I like using this goal setting system. And that's not to say never be spontaneous or never have a day where you accomplish nothing. I like having a day every now and again where I just don't do much. I think we need a little veg time in life, but in general, I think being purposeful and intentional are very worthwhile things. And so I set goals. I'm very low tech. Here's my marker board that I've drawn things on. This is what my dad calls the heart star. And so stars are always nice. You think about goal setting, people say reach for the stars. The star is a good, I think, symbol for what you're reaching for. The star has different facets, and here they are. And if you think about it, my dad always says to like superimpose a person over it. Hold on a second. My special effects here. Big budget. So if you think about a person superimposed over this, normally, if I talk to people about this, I act it out, but I don't have room right here. So the head is where this top is, and that's your mental goals. You hug your family and friends. So those are those aspects. The legs you stand on, figuratively, are fitness and finance. And then here in the middle is our spiritual, which I smudged already. Our spiritual goals. And one of the things I like about my dad's system is that the spiritual is at the center. Everything, we're spiritual beings. And so everything connects with our spiritual part and flows from that. Fitness, finance, friends, they don't just stand alone. They're not these little unconnected parts. So that's one of the things I really like about, the way my dad does goals. The other thing I really like about this is that it helps you stay well-rounded. You don't want to ever be a one-dimensional person. I wouldn't. You have the stereotype of the football player that's just all muscle and no brain and, that kind of thing. I'm like, I want to be someone who has all of these in my life. And besides being well-rounded, it also keeps you balanced. I think that's one of the big strengths of using this as a goal-setting kind of model, is that you can see when life gets out of balance. And there are seasons of life, I think, where you naturally get out of balance for a time, and then this can help you get back in. For me, a new baby makes, those first few months with a newborn, family is kind of all I do, So for that amount of time, the family facet of my star is the big, heavy one, and everything else takes a back seat. But baby starts sleeping through the night, not eating all the time, and things come back into balance. Maybe when you're first starting out in a career or starting a business, finance is going to be a large part of your life. It's going to naturally need your time and focus and attention. But I think having this goal setting model, you'll come back to balance, and you'll be able to see, all my goals are, fitness or mental. I need to change something about that. So I think those are kind of really the pros of using this. Let me start with another thing. Not start, I've already started. So here is our life, the lifeline right here. And on top is actual time. So seconds, minutes, hours, days, days, weeks, months, years, and then there's your life. It's kind of disconcerting to see all that in one marker board. And then below that line is what life actually is made up of. We start out with our worldview or our belief system that is integrated into us. And this can change, but this really is the foundation for our thoughts, and then our thoughts influence our actions. Actions become habits, and then our habits go back and re-influence our thoughts. So I draw this as a circle. I used to have it as I think Dad originally drew it as a linear. I've done that. That's one of the changes I've made to it from what he originally did. These just all influence each other. And you can break in and change any one part of this, which will change the circle. But these are just so interconnected that I draw it like that. These things create your actions, your thoughts, your actions, your habits, create your character, which is your influence. And then you end up with a legacy. And my dad and I gave this talk, this goal setting seminar once, and somebody, a child said, "What's a legacy?" And I remember being kind of stumped. I'm like, how do you explain legacy? Later on, we kind of realized that what I should have said was, this is what people say about you at your funeral. And what do you want to leave behind? So think about that. And really, with goal setting, you want to begin with these two ends, okay? What are the principles that you live by? What's your belief system tell you? What does it tell you is important? Because you don't want to get to the end and realize that you've left behind something that didn't matter. It's the Ebenezer Scrooge thing, A Christmas Carol, that story where Ebenezer goes through the ghosts of Christmas, and he comes out on the end going, I don't want my legacy to be that I was a miser. I want to be loved. I want to have people in my life who care and stuff. So these two things changed for him. So I think this is foundational. If you don't agree with this, then I guess stop watching this. While I'm thinking about it, I want to recommend, this is the only book I'm going to recommend, Power Habit. I'm going to mispronounce this name probably, Charles Duhigg. Great book about this little interconnected circle right here. So you want to begin with the end in mind. What is my legacy? What do I want that to be? What is it that I want people to say at my funeral? What are they going to remember? What's attached to my name? And then work backwards. So what does my character need to be for me to have this kind of influence and leave this kind of legacy? To have that character, you need to influence this, and that's always going to go back to the absolute foundation. What's your worldview? What's your belief system? I'm a Christian, I'll say that up front, so a lot of the things I talk about are based on that. So if something doesn't line up, I'm not going to set a goal that goes against my Christian worldview. Okay? So, you need to know these things. I want to talk about, real quick, people don't really usually want to go through the thought process in this because, I think people see this and go, okay, let me just write a goal for each facet. Hey, I like the balance. I think that's neat. Okay, pause and let me say something real quick about this. The only thing I've ever seen not fit well in these facets, in these 6 facets, is being a good citizen. I've ended up putting it under friends, okay? Because like Mr. Rogers, being a good neighbor is being a good friend, and I think being a good citizen is basically being a good friend. So I've put any citizen type goals under friends. All right, now back to where I was. Thinking through the process here is something not everybody wants to do. I'm an overthinker, so if you say, "Ooh, think about this," I'm like, okay. Some of my best friends are very spontaneous people. They don't want to sit down and think about stuff. That they're like, that's boring. I really think it's important, and I'm going to read something that I think helps explain that. This is a book I highly recommend, especially if you are working on finance goals. Complete the Tightwad Gazette by Amy Decision, is I think how it's pronounced. And she wrote something I think applies to this. She says, "Remember when you learned to ride a bike? That wasn't so simple. In fact, if I had to explain in an interview how to ride, it would sound even more complicated. It would be easy to conclude that walking is simpler than biking. But walking is a much slower method of transportation than biking. So if you walk, everything else in your life must be compressed to compensate for the extra transportation time. So if you put in the necessary time and effort to learn to ride, it will ultimately seem simple and simplify your life." All that to say, I think if you do the little extra work up front of thinking through the principles and priorities for each of these facets before you write goals, it will pay off. You might go, I don't want to do the extra thing. It'll pay off. You reap what you sow. That's a principle. That's one of my worldview beliefs. You reap what you sow. That's in the Bible, Galatians 6:7. "Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that he will also reap." And not many people are farmers anymore. So, agrarian type examples aren't always great anymore. But I think people still understand if you plant a tomato seed, you grow a tomato plant and you get tomatoes as the fruit of that plant. You don't plant a tomato seed and get wheat or peaches or green beans. So that has to do with this whole, hold on, my special effects. There it is. That has to do with this. You are planting back in here and you reap in here. So you will reap what you sow, but it's going to be in a different time. I read that quote recently. It was basically, you don't plant and reap or get the fruit in the same day. So a lot of times you don't see the fruit of your labors. And it takes time. Even, with fitness, I might go, well, I have a fitness goal to improve my health, and so here are some of the habits I'm going to start forming in my life. One of them might be drink, the amount of water I really should be drinking every day. I'm not going to see the results of that necessarily immediately. It might, depends on how dehydrated you are. But, a lot of stuff you won't see that same day, that same week. Family goals, friendship goals. It's not like the first time you do one of those goals, everyone around you is going to go, "Thank you so much. That's made all the difference in my life." So you have to build on the right principles because you won't see the effects for sometimes, a month, sometimes years. But you trust the process. Okay? So start thinking, piece of paper, what are your principles that you want to live by? Hold on, backtracking. I don't have the ability to cut this out and put it in. I'm going to read one other quote. I just have quotes all around me. Peter Drucker, who I don't know, said, "There is nothing so useless as doing efficiently that which should not be done at all." That, I think, is so important for goal setting. Your goals need to reflect your principles, your worldview, your priorities. Otherwise, why do them? Why put the time and effort into something that really doesn't matter to you? And let me also say this: you and I might have the same principles and priorities, but have completely different looking goals. Big UPS truck just pulled up. You probably hear the brakes squealing. You know, the goals are going to be very individual. I would expect principles and priorities would be different also, but we might have some that are fairly similar. And now my dogs are barking at the UPS guy. But, you know, your goals, your habits are going to fit your lifestyle. You know, I'm 51, married, homeschool mom with dogs, and I'm an introvert. So my goals and habits are going to look completely different from someone who's an extrovert, single 30-year-old, you know. But that doesn't mean that it's not helpful to have. I think it's equally valuable for us to go through the process. So, on to mental. You know, what would be a principle that you would have for, you know, thinking, for anything to do with the mind? Let's see. I'm trying to. I want to share enough to be an example, but not share enough because it's very personal. I've always kind of had my little thing is like, I'll share my goal setting process with you if you share yours with me. I feel like it needs to be a two-way street. So it's kind of like, what do I say? Mental, for me, would be, you know, to have common sense would be a principle. To gain wisdom would be a principle. My principles, like I said, because my worldview, my belief system is Christian, my principles are almost all from the Bible. So, you know, my spiritual principle, right here, is to love the Lord my God with all my heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love my neighbor as myself. There's my principle. How does that look, you know, as goal setting? Well, first we got to go through priorities. My spiritual priorities are things like truth, to increase my faith, to make disciples, and to know and love God better through study and meditation on His Word and through prayer. Those are my priorities that are, you know, flow out of those principles that I already told you. So for family, my principles, this one is actually not a Bible verse. My family principle is to be a family united in spirit, trained in discipleship, and prepared with useful knowledge and practical skills. Okay, that's one of my family principles. Family priorities are things like staying close to and demonstrating my love for immediate and extended family through play and work projects, learning useful skills, you heard that overlap, meaningful and exhorting conversation, and drawing nearer to the Lord. So that's a priority for my family. So that came out of my principles. And now my goals for family would need to be in keeping with that. Okay, so I hope you're seeing, I mean, I don't want to over-explain these and act like you have no clue, because I think by now you're like, okay, I get it. Here are the aspects. I need a principle, I need a priority, and then I can write goals. Yeah, so I really am trying not to over-explain, which I have a really bad tendency of doing. But let me also say this. Goals are great. I think building habits are even better. And again, let me refer you back to the Power of Habit book. So if you can go back, trace back into this circle right here and really build habits, that makes things so much easier. And then you don't have that part of your brain running all the time, having to make decisions. You build that habit in and it becomes automatic. And not only does it build that character, but it eases the mental burden. So really, habit building is really, I think, tracing it back to that would be great. So for example, I'm not going to over explain, but I will do examples. A few. Let's say fitness. So for fitness, I this last year said I will build 4 new health habits into my life. Okay? And 4 doesn't seem like much, but if they're habits and I keep those the rest of my life, and I do that every year, and I live another 35 years or so, that's a lot of good habits, that will pay off. Let's see, another, like, one of my health habits that I built in was drinking the right amount of water every day. So I got a pitcher that has that amount of water. I fill it up every morning, build that into my habits, and then slowly drink it during the day. There's a cup. So that has been good for me. And again, I might not see the results immediately, but they do pay off in the end. Mentally, I had I don't want to be zero waste, but I do want to really be low waste in how I am a steward of like the environment of nature. That's in keeping with my principles and priorities. And so this year, under one of my mental goals was, again, building habits. And so I said, I'm going to build in 4 new low waste habits. So 1 every 3 months. I don't want to, I want to accomplish things. And I like little steps that last more than big steps that might fade. That's me. So I just said 1 new low waste habit every 3 months. And as I do those, the trash that I have to throw away gets smaller, and I feel good about myself as a steward. And that goes back to my principle, my belief system of, back in the Bible in Genesis, where God put people, and Adam and Eve in particular, but people in charge of the earth to be the caretakers. So you see how those fit? Okay. If you have questions about this, I'm happy to help. Just write them on here and YouTube will send me a notification and I'll answer as best I can. But I feel like, you probably got a good head on your shoulders and get all this. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to say. Yes. I think I haven't said this yet. Jim Ryan, who's a long distance runner, he said this great quote, and I keep this up on my mirror in my bathroom because I like it so much. Motivation is what gets you started. Habit is what keeps you going. So again, just really reiterating the point of build good habits with your goals. And I'm not saying don't have some good goals, but if you can build it into your life in such a way that it becomes a natural part, I think that'll pay off better and be easier to keep. So hopefully this has been helpful, and best of luck to you in your goal setting.